Alright, welcome guys, good to see everybody. I'm Captain Brian Bacon, this is Captain Pete Bacon from Big Game Sport Fishing Charters. Today we're going to talk about jigging and chunking for bluefin and yellowfin tuna, and also different tactics we use. We're going to cover a bunch of different bases today, because it's not just chunking and jigging that we do. It's not just these two things that you're going to do in one day that's going to go out and get the fish. We're going to talk about a bunch of different tactics. So if anybody has any questions, fire away. Kind of keep it as an open forum, or if you want to wait to the end, whatever works is fine as well. So we're going to dive right into it. So we run two boats. We run out of Port Judith, Rhode Island. We run a 53 Ocean and a 50 Viking. We just got the Viking this year. It's a new boat for us. We just got rid of the 36 and got into the Viking. So we're kind of transitioning to do both boats more offshore now. Still going to do some inshore stuff, but once we come into mid-June, we're pretty much going to focus solely on offshore fishing again. Some of the stuff that we use, we'll talk about the tackle a couple of minutes. Is everybody awake now? Just want to make sure you're paying attention. Okay. So, Crafty One Customs rods, Daiwa reels, BMC hooks, J-braid, Rapala, Simrad, Ronzi, Williamson, and LC Marines.
So guys, before every trip, we go through and we do a lot of preparation, but really, check. Our preparation for our fishing trips starts now in the wintertime. The off season is when we go through our gear and make sure everything's in top shape for the upcoming season. All our tackle, whether it's rod reels, all the terminal tackle, we go through, we buy everything in bulk, and we have it kind of set up. We have, kind of our own little tackle shop that we have set up with all the jigs, terminal tackle, lures, everything that we use regularly during the season, we purchase now when it's available, and we kind of take stock of everything. That way, when you have a hot bite and you need J hooks or you need jigs, you have the stuff rigged and ready to go instead of trying to hunt it down when it's sold out at the tackle shop.
Because in reality, the success of what happens in the summertime starts now. So whether it's getting prepared, buying your stuff, when there's a hot bite and everybody knows that everybody's getting them on the green chatter spreader bar or the Daiwa SK jigs, go try and buy that in August. It's going to be gone. So buy all your stuff now, do all your prep now, get all that stuff ready, because what you prep for now is going to give you your success in the summertime. A couple other things we're going to talk about is just kind of like how we fish by month. And again, every year is a different year, guys. So from trolling to jigging to chunking, we can tell you what we've been doing the past 2 years. This year may be totally different, but at the same time, we'll kind of give you, a little bit of background on how we attack each season.
So, this time of year, we service all our gear, we go through all the rods, reels, we send all our reels out for service. All our lures, we cut apart, we re-rig out everything, we go through the skirts. Like I said before, we take inventory of everything, and we buy everything in bulk, so we have it rigged and ready when it's time to fish in the summertime.
One thing about the inventory is if you guys put your boat away at the end of the year and you leave all your gear on the boat, it's the worst thing you can do. I've done that, and what happens? Number one, everything's going to be destroyed when you unwrap the boat at the end of the year, and also you're going to buy everything that you already had on your boat. So if you don't take it off and take a look at it and just count and see what you have, you don't know what you need because you got to rebuy it again. And we've been guilty of that. We're like, oh man, we already had 10 bags of these hooks. Well, great, now we have 30 of them.
Or you leave your terminal tackle on there in the Plano box and you pull it out and it's all rust. It's just sitting there over the winter. Everything gets nasty. It's nice to take it off the boat, go through everything, see what you got.
So getting ready for pre-trip prep. So we're going to switch gears a little bit from, prepping off season to pre-trip prep. So really a lot of it begins with, fresh, clean leaders, whether you're going to be jigging or you're going to be chunking. Obviously you want to start fresh every day. Even if the leaders look good, we're going to talk about a couple different things that we do. Retie the leaders on there. If you fish the day before, the weekend before, however frequently you guys fish, check those leaders, check your knots, retie them, wipe them down. You don't think of things like this, but when you're steaming out, believe it or not, soot can build up on your leaders. If you don't wipe them down, if you don't take like sunglasses wipes or alcohol, that soot builds up on there, the fish can see that. So make sure you wipe your leaders down. We do that pretty much every time before we drop. So do that stuff, check your leaders.
We'll go through, we pre-rig all the rods. So we'll have, if we're gonna troll, we have, on the way out, we take our whole trolling spread out, attach it onto every rod, and have, the lure sitting on the deck. So that way when you're running out there, all of a sudden you see life, you see fish, everything's already out on the deck. You can just toss it in the water and start fishing instead of, okay, what am I gonna fish today? You're pulling stuff out. We do that when we're on our way out. We'll rig up rods for chunking. We'll rig up rods for jigging. We'll have, pitch bait rods rigged up. So you just never know what you're gonna run into. You could be running out there and see fish up on the surface and you're gonna pitch plugs at them. If you don't have that stuff ready, you're gonna miss your opportunity because you're gonna pull up in the boat and you might have one cast you can make at them before they go down. If you're not ready for them, you missed it.
So we fish 7 days a week, and when we go, we kind of know whether it's going to be a troll or a jig bite once you start going and get into it. So usually, if it's a troll bite, like as Pete said, we're going to have all our conventional gears rigged and ready to go. But all of our chunking, our spinning, jig and pop stuff, that's all rigged and ready to go as well. Because a lot of times when you're steaming out, I've always said to people, just because you put that waypoint in the GPS doesn't mean that's where you're fishing. How many times have you been steaming out and you're like, oh yeah, I got a 40-mile steam today. 20 miles out, there's fish blowing up on the surface, and you're not ready because your gear isn't ready. You're like, oh, I got another 20 miles to go. Get the stuff ready as soon as you pull out of the dock. There's been plenty of times where we've been steaming out there, we've had our stuff ready, whether it's we're ready for the troll or we can throw poppers at them. We have all the stuff ready and you can maximize those opportunities. Because with offshore fishing, guys, sometimes you're a rock star, but you can go from hero to zero pretty quick. So to have that stuff ready, you're going to maximize your trip.
And then the last thing is networking. We work with other charter captains, other commercial guys, and we network. We're out every day, so we share information with guys that fish every day, like we do. We'll say, oh, we're over in the Fingers, and we caught some bluefins over there today. Somebody else that we work with might have been west of us, and they caught fish. So at least we have an idea, where we're going to go the next day. If the spot we're at is, overcrowded with boats and we want to try somewhere new, at least we have some intel of another spot to go try.
So here's a good shot, guy. This is our old boat here. As you can see, we have the whole trolling spread out here, but we have all of our jigging rods ready to go up top. So no matter what happens on the surface, if we're trolling and you see fish blowing up on the surface, we can change that over really quick. Or if we have a big concentration of fish under the boat, we can bring all this stuff in and drop them. So we have everything rigged and ready to go. Here's just kind of close-up of some gear that we use, spinning gear, conventional stuff. So pre-trip prep, whether it's early season, into October, really you want to look at your water temperature. Water temperature, wherever you have a temperature break, that's where you're going to have concentrations of bait, concentrations of life. And when there's bait, there's going to be fish there, okay? So really kind of to explain it in layman's terms, if you have like a cold water mass meeting a warm water mass, you're going to create upwelling, which almost creates like an underwater storm, if you will, which brings up a lot of that photoplankton that the bait fish eat, which brings in the game fish. Which is going to bring in your whales, your porpoise, your birds, your signs of life, things that you're going to see on the surface to say, hey, there's something going on here. If these mammals are here, there's birds here, there's bait here, there's life here, there's fish here. So look at temperature charts. There's a number of different or companies on the market, I should say. This one on the left is Ocean Temp. This one on the right here is Roffers. Rip charts, that's who we used last year. It all depends on how defined you want to get. But at least it'll give you a good starting point, you know, where you can kind of go and start and say, hey, we have some good temperature breaks here. You know, where do I start? And a temperature break may be large. It may be a 2 to a 4 to a 6 degree break. We've caught fish in, you know, as little as a ½ degree to 1 degree break. So wherever there's a break in that big mass of oceanic desert where there's nothing going on, the slightest temperature break could be the difference, you know, in holding fish there. So don't overlook that stuff.
And also with the temperature breaks is also water clarity. A lot of times, you know, when you come out of that, you know, colder water and you get into the warmer water, you're gonna see you hit that temperature break, you'll see a change in the water color. And sometimes it's literally like a fence where it goes from green to blue, and other times it takes, you know, it could blend over, you know, a mile or so. But you know, most of the time, you know, that's where your bait fish are going to concentrate, is like on that fence. That's where they can hide and where the most nutrients for them to eat is.
Another thing going back to that, guys, is when you're steaming out there and you think you're getting close to the spot, again, I'll go back to just because you put that waypoint in your GPS doesn't mean where you're going to fish. The water moves, and the water moves pretty fast. So by the time you print this chart out and you bring it with you on your boat, that water may have moved a few miles, may have moved, you know, east, west, south, wherever it is. Always keep a look at your sounder once you start getting close to that point. And just monitor the temperature, because if you see that temperature start to creep or start to drop, you know you're getting to the point. So don't run over a temperature break just because you think, oh well, it's supposed to be another 2 miles or 5 miles south from here. That water moves. So keep that in the back of your mind and always kind of, you know, pay attention to your sounder and the temperature as well.
Yeah, obviously all our leaders for, you know, either chunking or jigging is all fluorocarbon.
So we're going to get into the fun stuff, and not that we condone drinking, but you know, anybody who likes to have a beer and jig for tuna fish, you can do that. So anybody not jig for tuna yet? Anyone in the crowd? Okay, once you do it, it's all you're going to want to do. It's awesome. It's trolling is fun, but getting them on the jig on a light tackle spinning rod, it's awesome. So the technology has come a long way, guys, with the gear. Most of the spinning rods that we're using right now, they're pretty much all carbon fiber blanks. They bend from the butt to the tip. You can put a lot of heat on these fish. All the reels right now have like a 45 pound drag, and we're fishing 60 to 80 pound braid. So you can put a lot of heat on these fish. Where before you needed a big meat stick, a big reel with a lot of line on there, you don't need to do that anymore. Just another picture of one of our guys with that.
So some of the end game gear we use, you know, we use a lot of LT marine stuff. You know, the harpoon is, you know, pretty much any fish that's, you know, over like 65, 70 inches, we're gonna harpoon it. You know, if we're allowed to take it. We rig it up on you know, Chris sells the whole harpoon warp thing. It's all set up. It's got a poly ball on there, so you can stick the fish. If the fish runs, you can let it take the line. You can throw the ball. You know, the whole 9 yards. For like the smaller fish, you know, mahis and stuff like that, we use you know, a 2-inch hook, and for the, you know, the regular, you know, kind of everyday yellowfins and bluefins that we're getting like 60 inches and under, we're using just a regular 4-inch hook.
So, past few years, guys, there's been a great mix of both bluefin and yellowfin in close. So it's, you know, it's not uncommon where you can go out, whether you're trolling, chunking, jigging, where you can get your bluefin, you can get your yellowfin, you can get your unders and overs in the bluefin, load up on your yellowfin. So past few years especially, a lot of these fish have pushed in close. We've had fish, really in the mud hole. Yellowfin in the mud hole to the gully and south of there. Early this season, the bluefin bite kind of started in the dump. We had yellowfin that pushed in there. Yellowfin, at the Suffolk dump. I mean, all the way to the west.
Yellowfin's like right at the wind farm last year.
Yeah. So the fish, as long as that bait and that water keeps pushing in, I mean, those fish are going to keep coming back. And past few years, the bluefin, these schools of bluefin that have been coming in, they're getting bigger. So we're getting more large species of bluefin. We're getting more giants that are coming through. So it's not uncommon when you guys are jigging, you're going to hook something and it's like, poof, your line's gone like that, and you're like, oh my God, what just happened? You hooked a giant. And it's not uncommon. So they're mixed in with these fish, and it's awesome if you know what you're doing, but if you don't, you're going to get spooled in like 2 seconds. And it's like, I can't say what happens on the boat because it's a family event here, but you can just imagine when that thing happens, the line's gone in like 2 seconds. But that being said, past few years, guys, especially this year, the class of bluefin that we had, school bluefin, most of the fish were between 52 and like 62 inches. So you're getting those chunk, popper, troll, handful of smaller fish around. And Pete had a couple trips this year on the yellowfin. Well, you tell him on the yellowfin.
Yeah, we had like 2 big Allisons, like over 100 pounds, on a couple of trips, and then, I mean, we had trips with like probably 30 yellows on one trip, jigging and chunking. So
He had one trip. He had 2 fish, yellowfin over 60 inches, like mid-shore. Just where were you? Just like south of the Suffolk? Yeah, that's like ridiculous. So those are like canyon fish that are pushing in close. So if this stuff continues, we still have the bait that's going to keep pushing in here. We're going to have an amazing mid-shore fishery trend that's going to continue to happen here. South coast of Rhode Island, pretty much like south of Martha's Vineyard, all the way south of Montauk. That's kind of the range we fish, and it's been lights out. So we're going to kind of break it up by month here on what we do. So we start, pretty much, we start like inshore fishing in May. We'll go out cod fishing. We'll do trips to Cox's Ledge. We're always looking for bluefin. Giants will show up in Cox's, south of Newport in May. Into June, that's kind of when we start charter fishing after we know that we're going to have a good concentration of fish around. But we're out there early. We're looking for sharks. We're looking for life. We're looking for bait. Early season, primarily, it's a lot of trolling. You can get them on the jig. You can get them on the popper. But a lot of the fish are spread out early, so we troll to find them. If we have a good concentration of fish, if we're marking good, if I'm in a big pot of whales, we can drop down and start jigging. Early season is primarily all trolling for us. But that doesn't mean you won't get them on baits, you won't get them on jigs, it's just everything is spread out. So early season, this is kind of where we're going. So the migration of the fish, like most of them come from the west. So you can kind of see Montauk and south of Montauk, CIA grounds, butterfish hole, horns, and then they're going to push into Cox's. That end of May, early June, those are kind of places that we take a look. We kind of do a great loop. We go out there, and if we see any life, we're going to stop there and look. And early season, you'll go out there, and this happened last year too, or not this past summer, but the summer before, where there was bait, there were whales, all in the dump. We went out there a couple days, there's no tuna fish there. Tuna haven't got there yet. So it's going to happen. You just have to wait for them to get there. But every year's a different year. But again, this is kind of our early season go-to spots.
So, if you're looking at your sounder and you see this, you found them. This is what a school of bluefin or yellowfins look like, on our sounder, streaking around, chasing baits. That's pretty much what you want to see. You can actually see our jig coming up through the center of that school over there too.
Yeah, they're right here.
Yeah. So you can see our jigs going up and dropping down. So that's the kind of stuff you want to look for on your sounder as far as fish go.
Yeah, if you see something like this, guys, you're on the troll, put the trolling gear on right away, drive around till you see this again, and drop the jigs right back down. your jigs, your ronsies, even poppers. Like if you start like blind casting poppers, a lot of times you can get these fish to come up and they'll just blow up the popper. But whenever you have concentrations of fish like this, that's when you can start jigging and doing your bottom game. Early season, we'll troll endlessly. You'll mark one fish here, one fish there when the stuff is spread out. When you see concentrations, it's time to do the jigging stuff.
So this is the kind of stuff that we're looking for when we're searching. We're looking for life. We're always looking for whales and birds. They're most likely always feeding on sand eels around here. There's been sand eels all the way from basically the beach out, 60, 70 miles. You'll run into just pods and pods of sand eels. They're the whales, the birds, they're eating the sand eels. Later in the season, you might run into big, giant schools of rays. And, if you got to drop underneath them, but usually there's tuna fish underneath the rays.
Yeah, guys, sand eels, if you find sand eels, the tuna fish aren't far behind. And whales, porpoise, all that stuff is going to be there. So keep a lookout for that stuff.
So May and June, this is like a really common, sight to see. Tons of birds, feeding on sand eels, getting pushed up by the whales and the fish. We'll just drive around until we find that life, and then, figure out we're either going to troll or jig or whatever we're going to do. But mostly in the beginning of the season, we start off on the troll. Trying to put some fish in the boat, and then we try jigging, once we get some meat on the deck.
So here's another good shot. So if you see this, you won. Buy a Powerball ticket because you're going to slam. That's it. Doesn't get any better than that. All right, so some of the stuff that we use, and it says May and June, but we use this stuff year round. Ronsies or the Ron's lures, if you haven't gotten any of these, get them. They are lights out. For us, I think the whites, the silvers, the pinks are probably our most productive colors. The greens. Yeah, there's like a chartreuse green. It's almost like the solids. We find that the solid colors catch better than most any other color that they offer. They have some translucent stuff, but I think the solid colors are the best. The cool thing about the Ronzi stuff, we run a charter boat, so we have a whole different mixed bag of people with experience levels. So we have people that have never fished before to guys that do it all the time. So right when we get to the fishing spot, if I'm going to be jigging or popping, first thing I do is I just toss out a Ronzi. If I can mark where the fish are, if they're 80 feet down, I try and get that Ronzi around 80 feet where the fish are. I stick it in the rod holder and I just dead stick it. Let the thing sit there. While I'm explaining to everybody how we're going to fish for these things, more often than not, the rod goes off. So we're fishing before we're fishing. So if you guys can do this, kind of make that part of your game plan while you're getting stuff ready, always get the Ronzi out there. Even when I have guys jigging, we're always dead sticking one or two of these in the rod holder because they always catch.
Yeah, the same thing goes for chunking. It's really quick and easy to get out while you're rigging baits or putting baits on or whatever, or setting baits out. You throw that thing out there, let it sink down, lock it up. You're fishing. You get your baits out, your chunk baits, and like Bryce said, 9 times out of 10, while you're setting up, that rod goes off. It's an awesome thing to have. That's real easy to throw out there.
So you probably want to go with the heaviest one they offer. I think it's like 6.5 to 8 is the heaviest ones that they have. So a lot of the times we're fishing anywhere between like 130 to 200 feet of water. So a lot of times with the runs when we're fishing these, especially like early to mid-season, the bluefin are on the bottom. And if you see those marks right on the bottom, those fish are right on the bottom because they're trying to like kick the sand eels out of the mud. So if you have that Ron's like sitting right on the bottom, you want more weight to get it there. They have lighter heads, like 2.5, 3 ounces. It's just going to scope out. So the more weight you have, the better, especially when you're fishing in current and wind. The current's going to push you, the wind's going to push you, so the more weight you have, the better. I mean, no matter what, when that thing's sitting in the rod holder, when the boat's rocking, just bounce it off the bottom.
It's jigging itself. The boat rocking jigs itself. So You can kind of you can work the jig, but we often just dead stick it in punches.
We typically use them for fluorocarbon contests.
Usually, our 9 times out of 10 we're fishing 80-pound tests. If we're not getting bites, then we drop down to 60 and there keep going down from there. I mean,
We've had days with Randy where we had to put 40 on, we weren't getting bites, and then we hooked a huge yellowfin, and then he was like the biggest one we've seen in the Northeast, and of course we lost it at the boat, and that was the best feeling I ever had. Yeah, that's one of those trips I'll never forget. But yeah, if you're not getting the bites, you have to change it up. And if you're marking fish and they're not chewing,
I mean, we had trips last year when we had 120 on, they didn't care. So it's, we try to get away with the most you can, but if you're not getting the bites, you just drop down.
When are you switching over to sirens? Are you looking for an explosion on top first?
So the thing with really any like top water stuff, so if we go back, let me just go back. If you see stuff like this, they're gonna hit that. You can use the sirens, you can use poppers, you can blind cast out there. Just
I know
throw it out there.
poppers are gonna create the noise and all that jazz.
The poppers-
But the sirens,
the sirens
down and
will actually swim down by themselves.
Exactly.
So like usually you'll throw it out there, and we use them a lot when there's a ton of like nuisance birds like shearwaters.
Yeah, shearwaters get like
So
poppers.
you'll use the sirens and let it sink down, and then retrieve it.
Yep.
Yeah, the sirens will get under the birds and they actually sink. Like we've actually had some trips where we didn't these things are awesome, by the way. So we had trips where like we're not paying attention and guys will just let them like sit there. They're just sitting there like bouncing off like they're fluking. I'm like, this guy's never gonna catch anything. All of a sudden he's like, oh, I got one. And it's like, so whatever you think is like the worst thing that'll never catch, I learn something new every year. So I mean, they work. They work. It's great. Like
They work as a jig.
Yeah,
too,
you can jig them too. Yeah. SK jigs, for whatever reason, this pink, blue, and silver combo, it outcatches like every other color. I mean, we absolutely slam with this. But usually when we start jigging, guys, I'll have like 5 or 6 guys start jigging, and we'll kind of switch up the colors. I'll have a couple guys fishing this. I'll have a couple guys fishing the pink and silver. And also this past year, the sardine color was like blue, silver with a little bit of yellow. It was like 2 weeks where we absolutely crushed it on that, and that was like the most popular one. But these jigs, guys, like Pete said, the 110, 140, 170, they're awesome. If you don't have them, get them because they work. And I'm an unpaid spokesperson, by the way. This stuff works.
So it's just some other jigs and stuff that we use, the Williamson, those big jigs. We don't use them a lot, but if you have a fast drift, it's rough. The bigger jigs get down, stay down. The Rapala explode. We've been using a lot of the Mad Mantis poppers last year. They were awesome. I don't have them on here, but I know a bunch of guys have them at the show. They're a great popper.
The thing with the jigging, guys, you almost want to fish the jig depending on your drift. So if you have a really fast drift, you're going to have to use a heavier jig. You don't want that jig scoped way out because it's not going to present itself right when it's coming up. So if you're flying, if you have wind with the tide and you're like cranking it like 3 to 5 knots, you're going to have to use a heavy jig. Or even there's been days out there where we'll run like a 10-foot leader, put a Ron Z down there with a sinker, just up the line of that, like 10 feet up from the leader, just to get that thing down there. But the more scoped out you are with the jigs, the less bites you're going to have. You want to be more straight up and down with your jigs. So once you start dropping, you can kind of get a sense of, obviously the later jigs are going to be a lot easier to move through the water. But if you're scoped way out, you need more weight.
Yeah, I mean, another thing you can do, we have a lot of our guys, like half the guys jigging, we'll have them pitch the jig up current, so then it sinks. And by the time they're, at the bottom where they're kind of vertical up and down, they can work it back up towards the boat. Instead of dropping it down, then they're already scoped out. So, that's another tactic, kind of pitch it up current, let it sink, and as the boat drifts towards it, you'll be up and down, you can work it.
It could be anywhere from like 3 to 5 knots. Then when I say fast, it's fast enough where your bait doesn't present itself right. So if you're not, I mean, there's going to be very few days where you're straight up and down, but at least have a little scope on the bait. But from me to you, if I'm scoped out from me to you, it's not going to present itself right. You need more weight there. So July, August, we're going to talk about a couple different things. We're going to talk about jig and pop, but also some troll stuff, because the thing with jigging and popping, it's not the answer every day. And my mates will tell you, and they hate me for this, sometimes we go back from jigging to trolling, to jigging to trolling. We switch all the gear around a million times. But it's whatever works is what wins.
So July and August, kind of the same thing. Sand eels is usually, offshore. There'll be some squid and stuff like that. But we get some warm water eddies that move in. That's when the yellowfins really start pushing in. You get the warm water. The mahis start pushing in. Once in a while, we get some wahoo in July. Usually they're kind of later in the year, but we pretty much, when we're trolling, 90% of our trolling spread is either a spreader bar, tracker bar, a chain, or a Joe shoot with a ballyhoo. The Joe shoots, a lot of times if they don't hit the spreader bar brings them up almost like a teaser. And we'll have like the single baits kind of positioned around the spreader bars, so they'll come up, either whack the spreader bar, another one will come up and hit the single. That's kind of like our game plan to that. But we kind of look at it as the more stuff you have in the water, the more the more there is for them to see. So the spreader bars, the chains, they're big teasers, multiple baits. That's what kind of brings the fish up.
Cool thing with those Joe shoots is, even if you don't have any ballyhoo, you can put one of those plastic rods on the end, and they work excellent. One versus another. I saw a video online the other day where somebody had a drone kind of just flying on top of a Ronzi, swimming with a Ronzi on it. The thing looked killer. The tail was going like this. It looked just like a real live bait. So if you don't have ballyhoo, if you run out, don't be afraid to run a Ronzi, on the end of that Joe shoot there. So once we come into July, you get a real mixed bag of stuff that starts to show up in southern New England, as Pete said. The wahoo start to show up, the mahi, marlin, bluefin, yellowfin. I mean, everything is on. Everything's going on. So as we come into that time of year when the water starts to warm up, again, this is going back to like looking at your temperature charts and seeing where those temperature breaks are. So there's a bunch of different, if you look at all these spots on here, guys that have been tuna fishing the past couple of years, there's been spots in all these places the past couple of years. Early season this year, whoops, my bad, let me go back. So early season this year, northwest corner of the dump, this was on fire from pretty much like early June through the end of the year. It was
there was fish there, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And fish also moved, as this year progressed, middle of the summer, they were over Suffolk, Tuna Ridge, and then the year kind of ended back over in the dump again. They were over that way. We had a good chunk bite over there, there was still fish over at the Suffolk, but we had a lot less traffic over at the dump.
That's the thing, guys. When there's fish in one spot, there's fish in another spot. And, the dump and that Suffolk Tuna Ridge bite, everybody in the planet knew about those spots. Yes, there was a lot of fish there, but you're not going to get as many bites because there's so much boat traffic. Even when you're jigging and chunking, when there's 300 boats right on top of you, it minimizes your chances of hookups because there's so much other bait around you. And so much other boat traffic. And then you're jigging, and then you have a guy that's going to troll right over you. People running you over. That's the best. But in any case, again, there's been plenty of days, where, again, like we're out here every day, so if I go to a spot and it's not happening, you know, if I'm there, you know, a half hour, I'm not getting any bites, or if I roll into a spot and there's 300 boats there, I'm gonna go for a ride and look for something else. There's plenty of life out there. There were a lot of times this summer, and I can tell you now because it's over, this northwest corner of the dump, the bite was right in here. 5 miles south of here, the bite was just as good. Loaded with whales, loaded with bluefin, yellowfin. This Tuna Ridge bite, the Suffolk area, there was a lot of fish in here this year. You know, you go a little bit to the west, we were getting fish right over here, and there was like 3 boats there. All the way over here, actually down here, the baboon, smoked them there for like 3 weeks, and there was nobody there. So we're not afraid to go for a ride to find the fish. And don't be complacent, because what worked yesterday doesn't mean it's going to work today, especially when you go on a weekend. Like, weekdays are definitely the best days to go. You have no boat traffic, but you go out there on a weekend, there's been plenty of times you rolled into that Tuna Ridge spot and it's like, I'm not even going to put a line in here.
Like, we've had days when I've gone, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go south, and we go and fish the lanes. We go out there and you know, look for yellowfin and mahis, and that, you know, that's usually, if you're going to get mahi and wahoo and stuff like that, it's going to be, you know, from there south. And you know, of anything of any size anyway. So, you know, usually if it's too crowded up at the northern spots, we'll just burn some fuel and run south.
Yeah, don't be afraid to make a run, because if you see other boats offshore, something's going on there. Nobody's there sightseeing, you know? So don't be afraid to stop and take a look for life. I mean, there's been plenty of days we've just gone for a ride. If it's not happening, just go for a ride. Eventually you're gonna find something. And when you go for a ride, you know, here's kind of a good picture of troll bite. You know, again, troll bite, chunk bite, chunk bite. And then when you get into them, you can load up on them. So you can, you know, jig, chunk, you know, plenty of the days we can load up yellowfins, bluefins, albacore, tuna mixed in. You know, you go get into the lanes, you're gonna have some albacore that start to show up on there. And they'll all hit the same stuff. You find the life, you find the bait, you're gonna find the fish. So, go ahead, Pete.
Again, we'll go through we were just kind of talking about the tactics and kind of got ahead of ourselves, but, you know, trolling, live bait, jig and pop. This is some of the other stuff we're looking for outside of, you know, the life. You know, any kind of floating debris, you know, like this is a big, giant, you know, part of a tree. That was loaded with mahi. Brian and I came up on a cooler one time and pulled like 3 wahoo off it and some mahi. You can actually see a mahi swimming in that photo right there. There's a couple of them, you know, just outside that weed line. You know, we look for weed lines. You know, we'll either troll the weed line or go down the weed line just looking for, you know, whatever, you know. So any kind of life that's in the weed line, we'll drop jigs down or throw poppers around.
So the mahi, we'll talk about the mahi in a little bit, but like anytime you guys see anything like this, stop and take a look. So Pete and I had a trip, this was a few years ago, there's a floating bait barrel out there, and it was loaded with mahi and triggerfish. So we did a couple drifts, we were bailing the mahi, we were drifting away from this barrel, and we're like, screw this. We tied the barrel right to the boat, we caught every single mahi on the pot. But it was awesome. But, you know, you never know what you're going to find out there. So if you find something like that, something as small as a cooler, a floating piece of styrofoam, buoy, take a look at it. A lot of times with these mahi too, or even the tuna fish, you may not see anything if you troll over it. Drop a jig down there, drop a jig down on that structure. You're going to get whacked by the mahi, or if they don't hit it, you're going to bring the whole school up.
A lot of times they're hanging down deep underneath, you know, waiting to ambush prey. So when you come through and drop a jig down there, if they don't hit it, they all follow it up, and then you can chunk them.
And when you chunk the mahi, so in New England, we have far better luck chunking the mahi than we do trolling. You get them on the troll, but if you can get a school where you get into stuff like this and you have a big concentration of mahi, or on the lobster gear, you know, we throw pieces of squid, pieces of butterfish, pieces of bluefish, pieces of ballyhoo. I mean, you're gonna chunk them, you'll catch every fish in the school.
Anything, even like, if you take the belly meat of the tuna fish or whatever, you can chunk up anything and they'll eat anything.
Super aggressive. And they can be extremely frustrating as well. When the water is cold, when it's like below 70 degrees, they'll be swimming around there, you'll see them, they won't eat, or you'll catch one, and it'll drive you nuts. But it happens. A mixed bag of like different sized fish, as you can see. You have big bluefins like up to 60 inches, some schoolie fish, yellowfin, all mixed in on the rons, on the jig, trolling. And again, it's not one thing that works. It's kind of mixing up your arsenal to see whatever works for that particular day. So there's been some advances in the trolling lure world the past few years. So anybody who doesn't have a side tracker bar should definitely get one. So the way that these things work, we fish a lot of the chatter stuff. You can actually adjust the keel on the this bird right here to make it kind of swim either to the port or to the starboard, and it swims outside the wake, so it's all in clean water, and these things just get destroyed. When we're on the troll, most of our bites are pretty much coming on the outside. I mean, you do get a lot down the middle as well, but a lot of the times they're getting destroyed on the stuff that's in the clean water. This past year, green, purple, and white were the hot colors. Canyon stuff is green, purple, white, and rainbow.
So this is another thing that we fish, and it's called the flippy floppy thing. It's actually it's meant to be a marlin teaser, but it's basically a daisy chain, and it has these squids with the squids coming off of it. And when you drag it through the water, it just creates a ton of commotion. And we'll put whatever lure we want to put on the back. We'll put something if this is pink, we'll put a pink lure on the back. On the snap swivel in the back, and just drag it behind it, and the thing gets whacked constantly.
So this is kind of what you run down the middle. We'll run this right down the middle of our spread while the side trackers are running on the outside. And this creates a lot of commotion, a lot of splash down the middle of your spread. So these are all troll fish here. So I know this isn't really jig and pop, but we have a pretty sick marlin fishery here, and I just wanted to touch on this real quick. Usually middle of July, really through October, we have a lot of white marlin and blue marlin. No, you don't have to go to the canyon to get them. They're pretty much in the gully and south, around that 30 fathom curve. South of Montauk, all the way south of Nantucket to the Vineyard, that area there. Plenty of marlin around, so if you're trolling, they'll hit the spreader bars, they'll hit the Joe shoots, flippy floppies. If there's a bait out there, they're going to hit it.
Good afternoon again, everyone. I'm announcing the next speaker for our seminar series. At 3 o'clock is going to be the Rhode Island Saltwater Anglers' very own Captain Dave Monty with tips from the experts on how to catch larger fluke in the seminar area.
You can load up on big mahi, big bull mahi. These are all southern Rhode Island mahi here. And as I mentioned, if you get into them good, you can have days like this where you're getting your boat limits of mahis. And it's all light tackle. The way we fish for them, it's all, light spinning gear. Pretty much the same stuff we're using to catch striped bass is what we're using to catch the mahi with. And we chunk them. We pretty much chunk all the mahi. If we're getting them on the troll, we're getting them trolling by bycatch. We're not targeting them on the troll. We pretty much chunk all of our mahi. And just the rig we use for the mahi, it's like a 6-foot, 40-pound fluorocar leader with a 6/0 circle hook, or you can use a straight hook. And once you get into them so quick, we just cut the hooks off, we tie a hook on, and there's about 20 fish flopping on the deck, and we just keep going. So just some more, mixed bag, bluefin, yellowfin, troll, chunk, jig stuff.
All right, so coming into the fall, last year we had an excellent chunk bite in September, where you know, we were out there weeks before bailing them on jigs, and then one day we said, let's try chunking them. They ate the chunks, and they just didn't eat a jig ever again. That's all you get them on was chunks. So, but it was, you know, large numbers of fish on chunks.
Bluefin and yellowfin.
20, 30 plus fish a day. So it was great fishing. You just gotta watch your weather in you know, the fall. You get a lot of wind.
Yeah, so chunking, guys, there's a couple different methods that we use. And what I can tell you this with the chunking is don't skimp out on your bait. Thank you, sir. I got 5 minutes, so I'll make this quick. So with the chunking, don't skimp out on your bait. When we do a day trip for charters, I'm bringing 6 flats with me, and I usually go through 5 and a half. So chunk heavy. When you start marking fish, throw as much chunks in the water as you can, and I fish 2 rods at a time. So the way that we do it is we pretty much, when we're throwing the chunks out, I'm dropping my bait down right with it, and I'm just dropping it back with the chunks.
We're just basically we call it yo-yoing, but we're just peeling the line and free spool off the spool and letting our chunk drift down with the chunks that we just threw in. As we, you know, keep throwing chunks, but our bait's down with that whole, you know, cloud, you know, 10 chunks that we just threw in. And we'll probably let it go out 100 yards and we'll pull it back and just do it all over again. Just keep throwing the chunks and keep feeding the line on.
That's the thing, like, there were days last year where guys would go out there, like my buddies, they'll go out there with 1 flat. They're all done fishing by like 8 o'clock and we're catching fish all day long. So that can really make or break your day. Also, think about this, when you're in a fleet of boats, where are those fish going to go? Are they going to go over to the 2 chunks over here? Are they going to come over here where we have, you know, big balls of bait coming in the water? They're going to go where the food is. So if the more stuff you put in the water, especially when you start marking, start chunking. Even after you guys hook up, start throwing chunks. Keep the chunks going. Keep them chunking. Keep them with you the whole time. Once you keep them with you, you're going to bail them all day long.
One thing to touch on is in the fall, we have a big dragger fleet here. Past couple of years, last year we didn't fish it because we didn't need to go there, but there was you know, some squid boats working kind of south of Montauk. We were running over there and chunking behind the squid boats, and we had the same results we had last year right here. It was way further run, but excellent fishing.
Here's another way to do it. This will do it too. You know, if we're in the canyon, we fish like this sometimes. We'll put balloons out and we'll set the chunks at different depths. You know, obviously, we find that the other way, the yo-yoing, is more productive than this, but this is another way you can do it. It's kind of the lazy man's method. You'll catch fish, but you're not going to catch as many fish doing it this way. Because really, you can set the baits at, you know, really wherever the fish are, but the fish are going to follow, you know, where the chunks are sinking, and you want your baits to be basically in that chum line where your chunks are.
A lot of times, we're chunking, we're throwing the baits down, and the fish show up at the boat, and our baits are out there. We're reeling the baits in to get them up here so we can feed the fish that are at our boat.
So what we're using, like Pete mentioned before, our go-to is pretty much 80 pound. If they're leader shy, we'll go to 60. We have gone to 40. You know, really with the hooks, we use a lot of circle hooks. You know, once you get into, you know, especially with the bluefin, we use pretty much all circle hooks. If it's just a yellowfin bite, we have used some J hooks before. You know, obviously, you got to kind of see what you got going on out there. So fall spots, this past year, we had fall spots that were, this time is up. Okay, that's it. Sorry guys. All right, well, if anybody has any questions, we're in booth 921, 922, or we can hang out here for a little bit, but thank you.